So Snowpiercer. Um, Snowpiercer is a 2013 science fiction film based on a French graphic novel. It was directed by Bong Joon-ho, which is if you guys know him, he is the also the director for the movie Parasite, which is the Academy Award winning Best Picture movie, which stars Chris Evans. So now this film is one also directly referenced by the music video Spring Day itself, especially because of the train and the water imagery of the music video. Even it was actually even mentioned in the lyrics itself. If you noticed it. Although apart from the fact that it was referenced by BTS, this film also has some significant points of comparison as with the analysis of Liguins or the insights of Liguins, the ones who walk away from Omelas, and I will soon discuss why. Um, but before that, sadly for me to continue this analysis, I must say that there are large spoiler alerts. So, especially with regards to the what would actually happen in the ending of this movie. So maybe if you do not want to be spoiled, you can pause this lecture video, and continue later if you have watched the movie. And I hope you return. But if you don't mind, but if you don't mind, if you are not bothered by spoilers, I will just continue. Okay, so the film concept, first discussing the film concept, similar to the ones who walk away from Omelas, it is a thought experiment that supposedly mirrors society as well. Although it has a more direct, it directly told us that from the very beginning that it was a dystopia, and there are a lot of wrong things in this society. Okay, for just a brief context first of what the movie is about. It is set in a post-apocalyptic dystopic society wherein the Earth is has become inhabitable for whatever we because of whatever that we have done to it, maybe because of climate change or whatever. Um, and so everyone everywhere in the world has become an eternal winter, and what is left of humanity is being maintained by this eternally running train, a really long train called the Snowpiercer. Now, what the movie explores are extreme class struggles and inequality. There are those near the tail of the train, who are the poor with barely humane living conditions, very cramped, overpopulated, and those near the tip of the train, which are actually just comparable to the upper class that we have now, or the one percenters. Further, um, those in the tail are treated more like a commodity than actual people anymore. Um, and the plot is actually is about basically a revolt from the tail as they realize that the whole system is unjust, so they must do something. Now, comparing this to our society, it's simply somehow exaggerated, or maybe not even exaggerated anymore, considering how bad things are. Um, but it is an exaggeration of the state of inequality and capitalism that we have now in our society, with which is the theme and key point of comparison also in the ones who walk away from Omelas, because as we have discussed a while ago, a key relation to current society from that story is also with regards to capitalism. Um, okay, so okay, although the key point of difference in in the movie is that similar to Spring Day, they did not just simply walk away from the Omelas or the system, or they did not simply remain in the system and tolerated it. The people staged an actual violent revolt against the actual system. The capitalist system that supported this classist inequality, um, they envisioned to break that system. Now, like Spring Day, in the music video Spring Day, they presented a possible third reaction. But this reaction, the reaction of the Snowpiercer presented is a much different stance in terms of the possible effects of the third reactions. In Snowpiercer, it just gives us a much darker perspective. Okay, so spoiler alert. In the ending, the protagonist saw so much injustice to the point that what he did, what his morally right action, quote unquote, or reaction was to overhaul and derail the train. So doing that would break the system, right? An action that would not just break the system, destroy everything and kill everyone. So this decision implicates a lot of things. First, it is obvious that it is no longer, again, just like in Spring Day, it is no longer a utilitarian framework anymore, since this action would result in even less happiness, because of course it would kill everyone. Another is that, perhaps similar to the ones who walk away from Omelas, achieving a society better or apart from Omelas is unimaginable, and that suffering is a prerequisite of happiness, and this is unavoidable. That fact is unavoidable. Um, it is clear in Le Guin's story and Snowpiercer that they both recognize that the status quo or in their society is morally wrong. It is just that so that the injustice is much greater in Snowpiercer, that which is why there is probably why the reaction is that intense, or that third reaction is that intense. Although what moral framework would adhere to that decision, the decision of derailing the train, for example, it appears we actually have a hard time figuring if there is a moral framework that would be pro that decision, because um I mean, there are a couple of moral frameworks that would justify changing the system, but to change the system through the means of breaking the system and killing everyone, it would we would have a hard time to find a moral framework for that, if there even is one. Maybe Le Guin was right that the third reaction is, I mean, the ones who walk away from Omelas, the society apart from Omelas is actually an unimaginable one, and not exactly possible. Although there is this key difference where still Le Guin, we can actually notice this, that Le Guin would still promote change, and that she would want change to happen. So that's why the morally better choice is actually to walk away from Omelas. Um, while on the other hand, Snowpiercer actually somehow focuses on the idea that change is futile in that sense. Once again, similar to Spring Day, the difference in perspective may also be due to time context. Snowpiercer was is in 2013. Um, reg- uh, Regards that maybe right now there is little hope to derail the status quo or to change the status quo to end capitalism. Maybe there is little hope because of how pervasive it is, or how it's taking over the world, capitalism. We are in contrast to the ones who walk away from Omelas, which was created in 1973. Maybe back then there were more hope of changing society into a non-capitalistic ones. Um, See, this is also in contrast to the view of BTS. Snowpiercer gives us an extremely pessimistic one. As I said, striving for change is futile. We have no choice but to accept capitalism, the reality of it, the permanence of capitalism. In this way, Snowpiercer adopts a morally resigned stance, and that it is truly the reality, the assumption that suffering is inevitable for happiness. The best we could do is to be more mindful of the suffering, but we still cannot eradicate it. So if we try, we'll just end up with worse things, such as everyone dying. So in Snowpiercer, it shows that we cannot even walk away from Omelas and going down the morally right path. So this is what I said a while ago. Going down the morally um, right path of renouncing injustice is ironic and futile and ineffective because it will lead to more consequences, such as everyone dying. So actually, the one thing we could do is to live out the morally wrong in guilty awareness. So let's just live with it. That's the only thing we could do, and that's actually the only thing. That's actually the first reaction in which Le Guin presented us, which is that majority of the citizens of Omela just choose to live with that reality. Perhaps perhaps the option to live out the morally right exists in the illusion that there is hope for change. Although the message of Snowpiercer is still clear, we are unable to live out out the morally right. Again, this is entirely pessimistic. Um, and that is the insight though. That although that is the insight that we derive from Snowpiercer. But to decide if this insight actually reflects reality now, for us that we cannot do anything, let's just decide for ourselves. So maybe BTS's theory is actually something that sounds better. So okay, this is actually my last slide. So again, maybe we could argue that the moral standpoint as presented in Spring Day is one that would actually fall closer to reality. I mean, it is more optimistic. The idea that we can do something, we can do something. Quite notably, there's actually even a part of that music video where we can see BTS walking away from the train. So the imagery of the train being Snowpiercer. It is also keeping with its stand that we can deviate from a wrong system. So it is possible to walk away from the train. So and that it is possible for society to exist that is different from now, which is having so much suffering. So again, we can actually do something. Okay, so yeah, actually that's the end of my analysis, the end of my pop culture and the ones who walk away from Omelas analysis. We have been given a couple of stances with regards to morally right actions when faced with injustice comparable to that injustice presented in the city of Omelas. From so that is from Ursula Le Guin's The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas to BTS's Spring Day and to Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer. So yeah. So actually that's all. If you reached this far in my lecture, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I would probably create there would probably be a discussion page for this. I hope if ever, I hope you would interact with me there. And if you have insights, share in that discussion page. So that's all. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for listening. If you reached this far, thank you for listening. I may also upload another lecture video at the end of the term. Another one about another topic. So but yeah, thank you all. Goodbye.